Please subscribe. It helps a lot.
Sean woke to a faint hum in the walls. Morning light filtered through the blinds, soft and uneven, painting stripes across his desk where open books lay in stacks. His roommate still slept in the other room, or so he hoped. The silence in the apartment was heavy, almost staged. Sean set his feet on the cold floor, rubbed his eyes, and reached for the pen beside his notebook. He wanted to study, but the humming deepened into a low crackle that made the hairs on his arms stand upright. "Morning," a voice said. Kyle leaned against the window, a flash of yellow bright in the dim light. Water dripped from the slicker that never seemed to dry, no matter how long Kyle lingered indoors. His grin widened, sharp and inviting, as if he'd been waiting all night for Sean to open his eyes. "You sleep through anything," Kyle teased. Sean tried not to smile, but failed. The ghost never left him alone for long, and he found comfort in that. "You like watching me too much." "I like seeing you alive," Kyle said. His tone was casual, yet his gaze held something deeper, something that pressed into Sean's chest until he looked away. A door slammed behind them. Reese stumbled into the kitchen, already muttering. He opened a cabinet, grabbed 2 mugs, and brewed coffee with sharp movements. The smell filled the apartment. He glanced toward Sean and frowned. "Talking to yourself again?" Sean's cheeks warmed. "No, I was reviewing right," Reese said, raising a brow. He sat at the table, sipping loudly. Sean stared at his notebook, pretending to read the half-finished notes. He wanted to say something sharp in return, but Kyle crossed the room first, moving with a loose stride that seemed more like performance than motion. Kyle leaned close, his face near Sean's ear, though Reese couldn't see him. "He's jealous," Kyle whispered, his breath cool against Sean's skin. "He doesn't like me because you prefer my company." Sean swallowed hard and forced a smile. "Reese, you worry too much." "Somebody should," Reese muttered. He pushed back his chair, finished his coffee in one swallow, and left the room with heavy steps. When the door closed, Sean exhaled. Kyle laughed softly and dropped into the seat across from him, boots thudding on the floor, though they left no marks. "You should listen to me," Kyle said, draping an arm over the back of the chair. "He doesn't understand what we have." "What do we have?" Sean asked before thinking. Kyle tilted his head, amused. "A connection. Not everyone gets one like this." Sean nodded, unsure. Kyle always spoke with certainty, with that quick wit that made it easy to forget the strange truth about him. Sean had grown used to his visits, the way Kyle seemed to fill the apartment with restless energy. He wondered how lonely Kyle must have been before Sean noticed him. Later that morning, Sean slipped out with Kyle trailing at his side. The air outside carried a crisp bite, clouds gathering above the mountain ridge. Park City stretched quiet in the early hours, narrow streets lined with small shops and weathered brick. Kyle pointed toward the hills with a playful glint in his eye. "You've been here how long and never climbed up to the mines? You study too much," Kyle said. Sean hesitated. "I thought people weren't allowed near them." "People aren't." "Lucky for you, I'm not people." Kyle laughed. "Come on, I'll show you." They walked until the streets thinned and trees closed in. The wind stirred through the branches, carrying the scent of rain. Kyle talked about the old days, the work crews, the way storms trapped men in tunnels. His stories made the mountains feel alive with echoes. Sean listened, drawn in, forgetting time. "You died here," Sean said quietly. Kyle stopped. His grin faltered, but only for a breath. "Yeah. Storm hit. Mine collapsed. I was 22. Since then, I've been stuck in between. Feels like I've been waiting since the words cut through Sean, stirring a strange protectiveness. He wanted to believe Kyle could find peace, that he could help. "You don't deserve to be stuck," Sean whispered. Kyle's eyes softened. "That's why I like you. You see more than anyone else." Rain started to fall, light at first, dotting the dirt path. Kyle lifted his face toward the sky, his slicker shining wet in the gray light. Sean watched him, heart quickening, unsure if it was fear or something warmer pulling at him. When they returned to the apartment, Reese sat on the couch with a laptop balanced on his knees. He looked up, annoyance etched across his face. "Where were you?" "You disappear without a word." Sean stiffened. "Out walking." "With him?" Reese's voice was sharp. Sean opened his mouth but closed it again. Kyle smirked beside him, enjoying the tension. "Whatever you think you know about him, you're wrong," Reese said, standing. His voice shook with something more than anger. "He isn't what he seems." Sean felt torn, but Kyle touched his shoulder with a light pat. The gesture calmed him more than Reese's words ever could. He gave a small nod, siding with the ghost in silence. Reese shook his head, grabbed his jacket, and left. The slam of the door echoed. Kyle chuckled. "He'll come around. For now, you're mine." Sean sat down, staring at the wet drops on Kyle's slicker that never dried. The storm outside grew louder, clouds rolling in over the mountains, yet he felt anchored by Kyle's presence. Part of him knew Reese might be right, but he ignored the thought. The attention Kyle gave him filled a space no one else had touched. The clouds pressed heavier over the city as the day moved on, their edges swelling with a color that promised rain. Sean walked the streets with Kyle at his side, the yellow slicker shining faintly whenever light broke through. He tried to listen to the hum of traffic and the chatter of tourists, but Kyle's words filled every space. "You see those hills?" Kyle pointed past the rooftops. "That's where I stayed. The tunnels run deeper than you think. Men died in them, but I stayed. I didn't move on, not because I didn't want to. I couldn't." Sean studied Kyle's face. The smile was still there, but it rested on something heavier. For the first time since meeting him, Kyle looked tired. "You're chained," Sean said quietly. Kyle nodded. "And you can help me break free." The thought startled him. "Me? Why me?" "Because you're the only one who sees me, the only one who believes I deserve better. That matters." They stopped at the edge of a trail where the trees began to swallow the light. Sean stared into the shadows, unsettled yet curious. Kyle's voice pressed into him, firm but gentle. "If you speak the words, the chains will break. I'll be able to stay with you. No more fading in and out. No more drifting." Sean's heart beat faster, a chance to give Kyle peace, a chance to keep him close. The idea filled him with hope, though fear stirred beneath it. "I don't know if I can," he said. "You can," Kyle replied. His grin returned, bright, confident. "You'll see tonight. The storm will help. Storms always make the veil thinner." They walked back toward town. The air grew heavier with moisture, every breath tinged with metal. Sean stayed quiet, caught between doubt and desire. Kyle talked about the ritual as if it were simple, nothing to fear, nothing that could go wrong. At the apartment, Reese stood waiting by the door, arms crossed, face dark. He blocked their way inside. "You went with him again," Reese said, his voice low. Sean felt heat rise in his chest. "I needed to." Reese looked past him as if trying to see Kyle, though his eyes caught only empty air. "You think he's your friend? He's lying. Whatever he's asking you to do, don't. He isn't what he claims to be." Sean tightened his grip on his backpack. "You don't know him." "I know enough," Reese snapped. His tone softened after a pause. "I don't want to watch you destroy yourself." Sean turned away, unwilling to listen. Kyle leaned close, whispering in his ear so only he could hear. "See? He doesn't trust you. He doesn't trust us." Reese stepped forward, voice trembling. "Sean, please. Don't follow him." Sean forced a laugh he didn't feel. "You're jealous." "Admit it." Reese's jaw clenched. "You think this is about me wanting you? This is about keeping you alive." His voice broke on the last word. The room went silent. Sean couldn't look at him. Kyle placed an astral hand over his shoulder, guiding him past Reese into the apartment. Reese let him go, but watched with an expression Sean couldn't name. Later that evening, the clouds cracked open with thunder. Sean sat at his desk pretending to study, but Kyle paced behind him with restless energy. "You'll help me tonight," Kyle said. His tone held no question. Sean looked up, rain sliding against the window in thin streaks. "What do I need to do?" Kyle's grin spread wide, sharp in the flicker of lightning. "Meet me at the trailhead at 2:30 a.m. Bring that book we found. We'll hike up near the mine. The storm will do the rest." Sean nodded slowly, drawn in by the certainty in Kyle's voice. His doubts melted under the weight of that smile. For a moment he felt chosen, as if his life held purpose for the first time. Kyle leaned close, eyes locked on his. "You do this for me, and I'll never leave you. You'll never be alone again." Sean's throat tightened. He thought of Reese in the other room, always scolding. He thought of Kyle's laughter, the way it filled him with fire. When Kyle leaned forward and pressed astral lips over his, it startled him, sent his heart racing. Cold lingered where their touch would have landed. Thunder roared above the city, shaking the window panes. Sean's choice had been made. He would follow Kyle into the storm. By the afternoon, the air pressed heavy, full of a storm that had not yet broken. Sean sat at his desk with the old library book spread open in front of him. Its pages smelled of dust and moisture, the ink faint but still legible. Strange shapes filled the margins, circles and sharp lines that seemed to crawl into his mind if he stared too long. He traced one with his finger, then pulled his hand back, uneasy. Kyle leaned against the far wall, watching. His slicker glistened in the dim light even though it should have dried long ago. "That's it," he said. "You're learning fast." Sean frowned. "It doesn't feel right." "That's because you're not used to it," Kyle replied, stepping closer. "Fear always comes before freedom. Once you say the words, you'll see." The sound of keys rattling in the front door made Sean jump. Reese entered, carrying a grocery bag, his hair damp from the rising humidity. He froze when he spotted the book on the desk. "You brought that thing here?" Reese's voice cracked. Sean closed the cover, his hand firm on it. "It's only research." "Research for what?" Reese's gaze shifted from Sean's face to the empty air where Kyle stood. "For him?" Sean clenched his jaw. "I told you not to talk about him like that." Reese set the bag on the counter with a thud. "You're letting him control you. You don't see it, but I do. Whatever he's asking, don't do it." Kyle chuckled softly near Sean's ear. "See how desperate he sounds? He's losing you, and it terrifies him. I can't blame him, though. I'd be afraid to lose you, too." Sean's chest tightened. He believed Kyle. He believed that this bond was real, not some trick. He turned toward Reese, anger bubbling. "You don't know what you're talking about. He trusts me. He needs me." Reese stepped closer, eyes sharp. "He doesn't need you. He needs someone naive enough to carry out his plan. That's you, Sean. He picked you because you're kind and you want to help. Don't let him use that against you." Sean's face burned. The words cut, not because they were cruel, but because they sounded too close to the thoughts he had tried to bury. He looked away, unwilling to meet Reese's stare. Kyle slid an astral hand across his shoulder. The feeling was cold, yet steady. "I'm yours, and you're mine," Kyle whispered. "Don't let him take that from us." Sean nodded slightly, as if to himself. "You're wrong, Reese." "You don't understand," Reese shook his head, his frustration plain. "You'll see soon enough." He turned, grabbed his jacket again, and stormed out into the thick air. The door slammed, rattling the frame. Sean sat frozen, staring at the book. The storm outside cracked with distant thunder, rolling across the mountains. Kyle laughed, soft at first, then fuller. "He can't stop what's coming. Sean swallowed, forcing down the unease that rose in him. What if he's right? What if this isn't safe? Kyle crouched beside him, his grin widening, his eyes lit with something wild. Safe is boring. Safe is empty. You've been safe your whole life, studying, hiding, waiting for something to matter. Now it matters. Tonight you'll see what we can be. Sean's pulse raced, torn between fear and yearning. Kyle leaned closer, his lips grazing Sean's temple. Trust me, he whispered. Rain struck the window, sudden and sharp, streaking the glass. Sean flinched, but didn't pull away. Kyle's presence wrapped around him, drowning out every doubt. He thought of Reese's voice, raw with worry, then pushed it aside. Kyle filled the silence with a heat that drew him in, leaving no room for hesitation. Evening shadows stretched across the room as the storm built outside. The book lay open again, the symbols waiting. Sean read them under his breath, his voice shaky but steadying as he repeated the shapes with his finger. Kyle's grin grew wider, satisfaction flashing across his face. You see, Kyle said, you're stronger than you think. Sean felt lightheaded, as if the words carried weight beyond sound. He closed the book with a snap, heart pounding. Tonight, he said. Kyle leaned back, triumphant. Tonight. The rain grew heavier, the thunder closer, filling the apartment with a pulse that matched Sean's racing heart. He sat still, staring at the closed book, knowing the choice he made could not be undone. Night drew across Park City with thick clouds pressing low. The storm that had gathered all day now stretched wide over the mountains. Rain fell in sheets, tapping against roofs and pooling in the gutters. Sean pulled his hood up, though it offered little protection. The book was secured in his backpack, heavy against his shoulders as he walked the trail that wound toward the abandoned mine. His sneakers slipped in the mud, yet he pushed on, guided by Kyle's glow in the dark. Kyle walked with an ease that unnerved Sean. The slicker reflected each flash of lightning, his smile unbothered by the rain that never stopped dripping from him. He moved as if the storm itself served him, not hindered him. You're doing the right thing, Kyle said, voice raised over the wind. Once it's finished, you'll never feel empty again. You'll have me, Sean pressed forward, though unease clung to him. The trail narrowed between rocks and broken trees. The mine's mouth yawned ahead, black and unwelcoming. The storm roared louder here, wind whipping down from the ridge. Kyle stopped in the clearing, raising his arms. Here. This is where it ends. Sean dropped his backpack and pulled out the book. Rain splattered across the pages, but the ink seemed untouched. He lit the candles Kyle had told him to bring, shielding the flames with trembling hands. They flickered stubbornly against the storm, forming a rough circle around him. Kyle watched, his grin wide, his eyes fixed on Sean with a hunger that made him shiver. Good, Kyle said. Now draw the symbols. Keep your focus. Sean knelt, dragging the chalk across wet stone. The shapes matched the ones from the margins, crooked lines and sharp points. Each mark sent a tingle up his arm. He forced himself not to stop. The rain blurred some of the chalk, but Kyle urged him on, his voice steady and low. Don't think. Speak the words. Sean opened the book again, throat tight. The symbols swam before his eyes, yet his voice rose with each line, shaky but growing louder. The ground trembled beneath him, subtle at first, then stronger, as if the mountain itself was listening. Kyle stepped closer, his boots leaving no trace in the mud. He placed a hand on Sean's shoulder, cold and firm. That's it. Keep going. You're almost there. Sean's heart pounded. His breath came fast, but he obeyed. The storm cracked overhead, lightning splitting across the sky in jagged streaks. The candles flared despite the rain, their flames burning blue. You see? Kyle shouted, laughing through the storm. You're stronger than you knew. Sean faltered on a word. His voice caught in his throat. For a moment, he thought he saw Kyle's face twist in the flash of lightning. The grin sharper, the eyes darker. He blinked, and Kyle looked the same as always, slicker bright, expression playful. Sean began. I don't know if... Don't stop, Kyle barked. His voice no longer carried warmth. Say it. Sean froze. His hands trembled over the page. He looked up at Kyle, fear knotting in his stomach. Another voice cut through the storm. Sean! Reese burst into the clearing, soaked through, hair plastered against his face. His eyes locked on the circle of candles, the chalk symbols, the open book. Stop! Don't read another word, Sean's pulse spiked. Reese, go back, you don't understand. I understand enough, Reese shouted, stepping closer. He isn't a ghost. He was never human. He's using you. Look at him, Sean. Look at what you're doing. Kyle laughed, loud and mocking. Of course he came. He couldn't resist. He thinks he can save you. Cute Sean's chest tightened. The storm raged louder, the circle glowing faintly with each rumble. He looked between Kyle's sharp grin and Reese's pleading eyes. Sean, Reese said, his voice cracking with urgency. You trust too easily. He's not who you think he is. If you finish that chant, he'll be free to do whatever he wants. Kyle's tone turned commanding. Ignore him. Say the last lines. Then you'll see the truth. Sean's hands shook as he clutched the book. His voice caught again, torn between the two. Lightning flashed, striking a tree near the clearing. The ground shook with the impact, showering sparks across the wet earth. Kyle's grin widened. Do it. If you really love me, Sean, then prove it. Reese took another step, rain dripping from his face. Or prove you still know who you are. Sean stood frozen in the storm, the words heavy on his tongue, the book heavy in his hands, the choice pressing down on him with the weight of the mountain itself. The storm roared so loud it seemed to swallow every sound in the clearing. Sean clutched the book to his chest, his clothes soaked through, his body trembling. The circle of candles burned higher, their blue flames whipping in the wind, refusing to die. The chalk lines pulsed faintly, glowing with each thunderclap. Kyle stepped inside the light, his slicker dripping, his grin wide. Finish it, he said. You're almost there. Don't waste what you started. Reese's voice cut through the noise. Sean, look at him. Look closer. He isn't what he pretends to be. Sean lifted his eyes. Kyle's face flickered in the lightning, cheerful 1 second, twisted the next. His grin stretched too far, his eyes black for a moment before returning to brown. The shift sent cold fear through Sean, but Kyle leaned toward him with a gentleness that pulled at his heart. You wanted me, Kyle whispered. You wanted to feel wanted. Say the words and I'll be yours. Forever. Sean's lips parted, the final lines trembling on his tongue. The mountain shook under him as if waiting for his choice. Reese broke forward, stepping through mud that nearly pulled his shoes off. His hand reached for Sean's arm. If you say it, you lose everything. He'll drag you with him. He'll never let you go. Kyle's eyes narrowed, his voice low and dangerous. Don't touch him. The candles flared, sparks flying out into the rain. Sean's voice caught in his throat as Kyle's hand pressed against his back, urging him to speak. Cold shot through him from the touch. He wanted to pull away, but part of him ached to stay. You promised me peace, Sean whispered. Kyle's grin turned cruel. And I'll give it to you. In my world, Sean's chest seized. The mask fell from Kyle's face with the next flash of lightning. His features stretched, skin gray, mouth splitting into rows of teeth. His eyes filled with a void that drew the air around him inward. The slicker clung to his frame, but it no longer looked human. Sean staggered back, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. He tried to drop the book, but Kyle's grip tightened on his wrist, forcing it open again. Say it, Kyle thundered, his voice shaking the trees. Reese grabbed Sean's other arm, pulling him back. Don't give him another word. Fight him. Sean's body jerked between them, torn. Rain blinded him. Mud soaked his knees as he fell. He gasped for air, caught between two forces, one pleading, one commanding. Kyle bent low, his face close, his eyes endless black. You belong to me. You always did. Sean's stomach turned. He wanted to believe the laughter, the stories, the warmth were real. But the truth stared at him now. Everything had been built to trap him. No, he whispered. Kyle's roar shook the clearing. Wind slammed against them, trees bending under the force. Reese held Sean tight, shielding him. The book trembled in Sean's hands, its pages flipping on their own until they landed on a set of words written in darker ink. Reese's eyes widened. Read this with me, Reese shouted. Sean shook his head, fear locking his throat. Trust me, Reese begged. If you trust anyone, trust me now. Kyle clawed at them, but the circle held him back, blue flames burning higher as if sensing his fury. His form twisted further, horns sprouting from his head, wings of smoke tearing free from his back. His laughter turned to screams that echoed across the ridge. Sean drew a breath that scraped his lungs raw. Reese began the chant, his voice steady. Sean forced his own voice to join, shaky at first, but strengthening with each line. The words burned his tongue, yet power surged through him, not cold like Kyle's, but fierce and sharp. Kyle thrashed against the circle, his body blurring into shadow and flame. He screamed Sean's name, voice cracking with rage. The ground split at his feet, a pit opening into darkness that pulled at him like gravity. Sean cried out, pressing his voice harder into the chant. Reese gripped his hand, their voices rising together. The storm roared above, but the chant cut through it like a blade. Kyle lunged one last time, his face stretched into fury and desperation. His hand reached for Sean's cheek, fingers long and clawed. For a second, Sean thought he saw the boy again, brown eyes pleading, slicker bright in the rain. Don't let me go, Kyle begged. Sean's throat ached. Tears blurred his vision, but his voice did not break. He finished the last word with Reese, loud and clear. The circle flared white, the candles exploding into sparks. Kyle's scream tore through the clearing as his body was ripped backward into the pit. The ground swallowed him, the earth closing with a violent crack. The storm faltered, rain easing to a thin drizzle. Silence followed, broken only by Sean's ragged breathing. He fell forward, the book slipping from his hands into the mud. Reese caught him before he hit the ground, holding him tight. Sean pressed his face into Reese's shoulder, his body shaking, his chest aching with both grief and relief. Kyle was gone. The mountain stood quiet after the storm. Sean lay against Reese's chest, his body limp from the struggle, his breath thin and uneven. The book rested face down in the mud, its ink bleeding across the soil until the words blurred into nothing. Reese loosened his grip only when Sean stirred. His voice came low, steady. It's over. Sean opened his eyes. The clearing looked drained, stripped of color, as if the storm had stolen something from the land. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked, his throat raw from the chant. Reese shifted closer. You don't have to say anything. Sean shook his head. His chest tightened when he thought of Kyle's last words. Don't let me go. For a while now, Kyle had been his comfort, his laughter, his companion when loneliness felt unbearable. Now all of it stood revealed as a lie built to bind him. Still, the memory hurt. The shape of Kyle's smile remained, even if it had belonged to something monstrous. He pressed a hand to the ground. The soil was warm beneath his palm. He drew his hand back quickly. His stomach turned, though the silence around them promised safety. Reese studied him. His eyes were not sharp with triumph, but tired and soft. You trusted him because he gave you what you needed. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Sean lowered his gaze. Water dripped from his hair into his lap. I nearly gave him everything. You didn't, Reese said. That matters. Sean thought about the way Reese had fought for him, the way he had stood steady when Kyle's voice carried power like fire. From the beginning, Reese had tried to warn him, even when Sean refused to listen. That guilt pressed heavier than the storm. I made you the enemy, Sean whispered. Reese's mouth tightened, but his tone stayed calm. You saw what you wanted to see. I get it. I wanted to protect you even if you hated me for it. Sean's throat burned. I don't hate you. Rain still slipped through the branches, tapping the ground around them. The clearing smelled of iron and ash, a reminder of what they had endured. Sean lifted his head and studied Reese's face. His hair clung damp against his skin, his clothes caked with mud, but his eyes held a light that steadied Sean more than any words. The ache inside Sean shifted, less sharp now, more like a hollow that might heal with time. He thought of the hours he had given to Kyle, the secrets, the trust, the tenderness. He wondered how much of it had been real, or if reality mattered when his heart still bore the weight of it. Thank you, Sean said. The words left him barely above a breath, yet Reese heard them. Reese nodded. He didn't press, didn't ask for more. He only reached for Sean's hand, his grip firm, anchoring. They sat like that until the storm's remnants faded, the clouds breaking to reveal a pale strip of moonlight. Sean's body felt sore, his spirit scraped raw, but he no longer trembled. The mountain held its silence as if giving him space to mourn. When Reese finally spoke, his tone was practical. We should go back. You need rest. Sean rose slowly, legs unsteady, and Reese steadied him with a hand at his elbow. The trail back to town gleamed with rainwater. Neither spoke for a while. Sean's mind drifted between the sharp memory of Kyle's grin and the steady warmth of Reese beside him. By the time Reese's car came into view below, Sean's body ached with exhaustion, but he felt a faint clarity growing inside him. Kyle's voice no longer echoed in his ear. His absence carried pain, but also freedom. At the edge of town, Reese stopped. You don't have to explain anything to me now, he said. But I want you to know I meant it when I said you're not weak. You fought. You survived. That means something. Sean looked at him, eyes stinging. You believed in me when I didn't deserve it. Reese shook his head. You deserved better than lies. That's all the streetlights flickered in the damp air. Sean thought about how much he owed Reese, not only for saving his life, but for seeing value in him when he had been blind to it. He couldn't repair it tonight. Maybe not even tomorrow, but he wanted to try. He squeezed Reese's hand, tighter this time. I want to make it up to you. Reese gave a faint smile, not smug, not bitter, only warm. Then start by sleeping. The rest can come later. They walked the last stretch together side by side. Sean's body sagged with fatigue, yet for the first time in weeks he felt the ground beneath him solid, not shifting. The night no longer belonged to Kyle's shadow. It belonged to the living, and to what Sean chose to build from there.
Please make sure you are subscribed and be one of the strange.